Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Para Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Shatashri Srimad Bhaya Chanan Vinod Bhakti Vedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Para Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Shatashri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se koho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Nithaya Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the Samudavaris. All glories to the Samudavaris. All glories to the Samudavaris. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Welcome to this morning's Bhagavatam class. I'm a bit out of breath from all the ecstatic kirtan we've been having. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we are reading Canto 4, Chapter 16, titled Praise of King Prithu by the Professional Reciters, and we'll be doing texts 11 to 13. So we'll go through text 11 together. We'll go line by line. Durasado Durvishaha Asanopi Viduravat Naiva Bhiv Bhavitum Shakyo Venarahi Utihito Nalaha Durasado Durvishaha Asanopi Viduravat Naiva Bhibhavitum Shakyo Venarani Utito Nalaha Durasato Durvishaha Asanopi Viduravat Naiva Bhibhavitum Shakyo Venarani Utito Nalaha. Prabhuji's. Durasato Durvisaha Asano Piti Duravat Naiva Bhibhavitum Shakyo Asanopi Viduravat Naiva Bhibhavitum Shakyo Venarani Utito Nalaha. Mataji. Sakyo Narani Utito Nahalaha Durasato Durvishaha Asano Bividuravat Naiva Babitum Shakyo Vernana Utito Nalaha. Okay, we'll go word by word. Durasada, unapproachable. Durvissaha, unbearable. Asanaha, being approached. Appi, although. Viduravat, as if far away. Na, never. Ever, certainly. Abhibhaviritum, to be overcome. Sakyaha, able. Vina, King Vina. Arani, the wood that produces fire. Uttitaha, being born of. Analaha, fire. Translation: King Prithu was born of the dead body of King Vina as fire is produced from the Arani wood. Thus King Prithu will always remain just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies, for although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Prithu. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Arani wood is a kind of fuel used to ignite the fire by friction. At the time of performing sacrifices, one can ignite a fire from Arani wood. Although born of his dead father, King Prithu would still remain just like fire. Just as fire is not easily approached, King Prithu would be unapproachable by his enemies, even though they would appear to be very near him. Okay, so now we'll go through text 12 and 13. Maybe we can go all through it together, like line by line. So, beginning. Antarbahishcha bhutanam pasyam karmani charanane utashina uvadhyaksho vahur atmeva dehinam. Translation: King Prithu will be able to see all the internal and external activities of every one of his citizens. Still, no one will be able to know his system of espionage, and he himself will remain neutral regarding all matters of glorification or vilification paid to him. He will be exactly like air, the life force within the body, which is existing internally and externally, but is always neutral to all affairs. Text 13. Nadanyam dandayate isha Sutam atma dvisham api Dandayati atmajam api Danyam dharma pateshnitaha. Translation: Since the king will always remain on the path of piety, he will be neutral to both his son and the son of his enemy. If the son of his enemy is not punishable, he will not punish him. But if his own son is punishable, he will immediately punish him. Purport: These are the characteristics of an impartial ruler. It is the duty of a ruler to punish the criminal and give protection to the innocent. King Prithu was so neutral that if his own son were punishable, he would not hesitate to punish him. On the other hand, if the son of his enemy were innocent, he would not engage in some intrigue in order to punish him. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratvishe Namaha Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I look around me and I see pretty much everybody in the room, if not all, no, definitely all, are more qualified to lead a Bhagavatam class. But I'll just try and serve to the best of my capacity, but please forgive me if I make any offenses or delineate due to my false ego. So, beginning at text 11, King Prithu was born of a dead body, the dead body of King Vena, as fire is produced from the Arani wood. For me, I imagine this as you have this inferior energy, you have the wood, and you have this very pure element. Fire is described as the purest element. And similarly, the Lord is Ishvara Paramaha Krishnaha Sachit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Ishvara Controller, and his body is Sachit Ananda. It's completely Uttama, transcendental, it's the highest, it's the topmost. Yet, out of the love for his devotees and for the need to restore an equilibrium in the world, he manifests in the King Vena's body, which is he's a king but of demonic qualities, and so he's chosen to manifest out this. Now, we can't think that because the Lord has done this that he's come in touch with some impure matter. As we've described, his body is Sachit Ananda Vigraha. So, as much as when he chooses to descend in the material world, he comes down, and it appears that he's walking among us, and it appears that he might have a body like us. This is not the case. The Lord is always transcendental, and everything, all energies emanate from him. Both the Prakriti, the external energy, Hadini Shakti's internal energy, they all come from him. So everything is all one in the sense that it all comes from the Lord. And so just because he descends and appears like he's walking amongst us does not mean that he has to take a material body to do so. He's free to do everything and everything. And so, time and time again, let's see if I can remember this. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam adharmasya taratmaham shrujamiyaham. When there is a need, when there's a decline in dharma and religious principles and the world is falling into forgetfulness, into ignorance, at that time Krishna descends himself. And he comes, from my limited knowledge, he comes for two primary reasons. To obviously restore the imbalance of the world, to rid the world of these demonic presences that are causing a burden to the earth, but he also comes to reciprocate with these devotees who are trying so hard to stay connected with him in spite of being at the forefront of Maya constantly. And when there is Dharma and religion in the world, the earth is not such a bad place, because although it is the external energy, it's being used in the service of Krishna. And therefore, just as if you put a dense, cold iron into a billowing fire, that dense iron picks up the qualities of the fire. And so when we are using all this material paraphernalia in the service of Krishna, it becomes spiritualized in a sense. And so there's many descriptions. I was reading a beautiful little book recently, The Teachings of Queen Kunti by Srila Prabhupada, and it describes that Queen Kunti's opening her heart to Krishna as he's trying to leave. And she's saying, right now, our kingdoms are flourishing. There is an abundance of grains and fruits and flowers and water. Everybody is happy. There's no scarcity. But this is not guaranteed once you're gone, because it's through the presence of godliness, of dharma, of religious pious activity, and of the Lord himself that the environment flourishes. And so King Vina, he was very puffed up in his role, and he was creating disturbances in society. He was creating fear amongst the people. He was unnecessarily taxing, and this was causing disturbance in the world. And when he was approached by the sages, and they concealed their anger as to his unjust behavior, and they pleaded with him, if you are wise, you will listen to us. Of course, we know that the Kshatriya warriors, the kingly caste of the time, they would always have Brahminical consult, because this is the role of the Brahmins. They are the highest intelligence in society. They know the primary incentive of the world, so they keep everybody sober to the truth. They are situated in sattvic energy, in sattvic behavior, and so they are never distracted to the primary goal of life, which is to please and serve the Lord. And many kings, Arjuna, King Yudhisthira, all these, Dhruva Maharaj, they all had advice from these Brahmins, and by taking that advice time and time again, they have been sobered to the truth. Dhruva Maharaj, when his brother passed away, was consumed by anger, and he found himself absorbed in the mode of passion. And it took his uncle, grandfather, what was the grandfather's name? Swayambhuva Maharaj. So it took Swayambhuva Maharaj to calm him and bring him down back into his sattvic nature. Remember God within the heart. Remember God within the heart of all living entities. And King Vina had the opportunity to experience this. The sages came to him with all good intent to encourage him to change his ways. But instead, very puffed up, he said, you don't know what you're saying. You should know very well that the king is non-different from the Lord. And he essentially greatly disrespected these sages, to the point where, sages don't ever want to act in violence. But if violence is necessary, this is the teachings of the Gita, if it's necessary, and if there's an unruly factor in the world that's disturbing life, then it must be killed. And so through the power of their own voice, through the Shakti of their own voice, they slayed King Vina. So he had the opportunity to learn from these sages, but he didn't. So we should always refer to the scriptures, which is in a sense non-different from the sages, and refer to sadhus in order to bring ourselves back into our sattvic nature. And we should also, in the pursuit of our sadhana and our service, we should as much as we can try and stay in a sattvic mood, because we're very anxious to achieve our goal, but that anxiousness can very quickly result in devotional service in the mode of passion. I find myself sometimes, I have a very strict kind of program in the morning in order for me to do everything I need to do in order to get out into the world. And I find that I need to do my rounds fast in order for it to be successful and to get the amount of sadhana that I want to in the morning. But I find myself sometimes falling into the mode of passion and falling into my head when I chant quickly, because I'm just so, I'm not necessarily focused on Krishna, I'm focused on finishing the rounds. And we should, for myself, maybe I'm just saying this for myself, we should be very careful, because, you know, in a sense that's kind of like a similar analogy to when an elephant goes and bathes in the water and then immediately comes and rolls around in the mud when he comes back to the shore. If we are chanting our rounds, very good. But if we're doing it in the mode of passion, we're not actually going to achieve the desire. And the desire is we want to connect with Krishna, no? We want to connect with Krishna. But the mode of passion will cloud us. So we have to always, we can chant quickly, and that's fine. But if that's from a place of passion, then we should check that. And I found that I've seen many monks do this through traveling, and also just in North Sydney Mandir as well. Before your rounds, you center yourself, you maybe do a little bit of breath work, something, anything to not chant from up here, you know, frantically, and coming from a place where it's in the heart and you're really relishing every syllable. Because we want, you know, we're trying to get out of nambas. We're trying to get out of this offensive stage of chanting. We're trying to cheto darpana marjanam. We're trying to cleanse the heart of all this dust. And we can't, our consciousness is not going to be clean if we're in the mode of passion. Physiologically, the body, it won't deliver the desired results if you're in this mode of passion. The body needs to be in a almost sedative state, but it's at the same time it's not. Sattvic is a very interesting quality, because sattvic is very calm, very relaxed, very soothed, but at the same time it's alert. So it's like you're very clear and you're very alert. Whereas mode of passion, you're not necessarily calm and you're not necessarily clear, but you are alert. So there is a space for that alertness, but it has to be in a calm, centered space. I also really love that he will be unbearable to his enemies. For although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. When I hear enemies in this translation, in this shloka, for me, enemy more or less means like those of demonic nature, those of adversive nature to the Lord. So this is also saying that he'll be unbearable to the atheists, to the envious, to the demonic. For although thinking that they are near to him, they'll actually be very far away. Many times, demons and atheists have tried to create mechanical means to approach God, to approach the heavenly kingdom, thinking that their material, intellectual power can overcome God. Ravana tried to build a staircase to heaven, and the Americans and the Russians tried to go to the moon, and they did. Maybe they did, but did they really go to the moon? We have to ask this. As much as they might have brought this flesh bag to the moon and collected some dust and claimed that to be scientific advancement, we know that they actually haven't entered the moon, because simply they have not got the body for the moon. So as much as they were very close, they think, to attaining a heavenly planet, they were very, very far away. Or they saw no life on the moon. And they couldn't sustainably live there either. They had to have these big, massive, puffy, clown-looking outfits on, and they had to go back into the ship to refill oxygen and all these things. So they don't have the body for the moon. The devas of the moon, they have the body for the moon, and it's a subtle body. And so, as hard as these scientists in the material world will try, they'll never be able to reach God. They'll never be able to overcome God, and they'll never be able to be God. And as much as they try and approach him with this physical body, the further they'll be away from him. And so, however, we as devotees are voluntarily entering this fire. King Prithu remained just like a fire, billowing. And we are also a spark of this fire. And our job is to willingly enter this fire. And once we enter this fire, everything that we aren't will burn, everything that we are not will burn, and everything that we are will remain. But how do we enter this fire without suffering and panicking due to the flames? We enter through love. So, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. It's only through devotion that we can approach God. It's only through devotion that bhajatam priti purvakam, that we receive the knowledge to come closer to Krishna. And so this is the case. We must show our willingness to change our inclination. I recently watched this beautiful Q&A with Ganesham Prabhu and Keshava Swami Maharaj. And Keshava Swami Maharaj was talking about our inclination, that right now our inclination is like this flat board, right? And water is pouring down. And based upon our inclination, and our water is like our attention and our energy, where it's flowing. And based upon our inclination, that's where the energy flows. Energy flows where your intention goes. So right now, my inclination is in sense gratification, is in maintaining this body, is in preserving my false ego. And all my energy is flowing in this direction. And he raised this point because one devotee was asking, why do I find video games and movies so enjoyable, and why is it so hard to do devotional activities? Shouldn't that be enjoyable? Am I spirit soul? Shouldn't I be relishing this more? But currently it's because his inclination is like this. So he derives only his pleasure from sense gratification. And none of the energy can flow into this other bank, which is devotional service. So, and what we have to slowly do is, as much as it's painful, this is why this is the analogy of jaundice, The analogy of jaundice is that it's painful to begin with because our inclination is like this, and all the energy, we're trying to make it flow in this direction, but it keeps flowing down into sense gratification. And so we keep being frustrated in our devotional service because it's like, it's just not flowing in that direction. But with persistence, the board starts to level out, and then the more it levels out, then soon enough your energy will be a surefire stream of devotional service. And then from this place, then from your heart you'll be sincerely praying in a similar mood to Queen Kunti. Tvaime nannivishaya matir matu pate sakrit ratim udvahata data gange vogam udamvati. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flow to the seas without hindrance, let my attraction be drawn onto you and not to anyone else. So it has to, once it starts flowing in that direction, it won't stop. And soon enough, all you want to do, like in the past, you had to try and think about Krishna. You're trying so hard. I need to sit down and think about Krishna. I need to read, and it's all a painful process because you aren't tasting the sweetness. You have jaundice. But the more you persist, then you actually won't be able to forget about Krishna. You can try, but you won't be able to forget about Krishna. And when you come into that stream, then, as Prabhupada describes, life becomes ecstatic. Every moment becomes blissful, thrilling, because it's just every opportunity is an opportunity to serve in some capacity. You know, it's described that the Kanishta Adhikari, they see only the Lord in the temple, and they think, okay, this is a place only where I can do my devotional service. And I come, and I do my worship, and then I leave and I stop thinking about Krishna. And many religious institutions have this. It's like, this is the day that we go, and we think about God for a couple of hours, and then we go home and then we continue on with our life. But Prabhupada said this is not yoga. Yoga doesn't mean, focusing for 2 hours and then going off and doing nonsense. Yoga means to connect, and we want to try and connect perpetually, We want to try and connect perpetually. And so the more advanced you become, hopefully I'll get there one day, but the more advanced you become, the more you think about Krishna consciously. The more you consciously look at every opportunity in your life in a way to serve in some capacity. I just finished a reread of the Bhagavad Gita, and at the end Krishna said, those who hear and read this transcendental literature are worshipping me through their intellect. So, sitting in Bhagavatam class, this is service to Krishna. We're surrendering our mind for some time. We're surrendering our intellect for some time, which is not an easy thing to do, especially in Kali Yuga. Our minds are very disturbed, and we're trying so hard to have attention, but the way I see it is like ADHD is not necessarily for one individual who's been prescribed that way. I think most people in this current day and age have an attention deficit. They can't, even the things they love, they can't focus for a long time. So Krishna, it's those who with attention surrender their minds and intellects to the Srimad Bhagavatam and the other transcendental literatures are very dear to Krishna. And our intellect and intelligence can become purified in the process, because we're polluted currently. But if you imagine a glass of muddy water, if you pour another glass of clear water into it, eventually that water in the muddy glass will become clear also. And so we just have to saturate our mind and our intelligence and our hearing in transcendental literature. In fact, every sense we can engage in Krishna and purify it in that way. But Krishna describes at the end of the Gita how specifically the mind and the intelligence, we can purify this through the transcendental literature. And obviously, there's the Bhagavatam and there's the Bhagavat. And so, reading the transcendental literature and associating with the sadhus who are non-different from that literature, who are so empty that they're reciting it very purely. Prithu will be able to see all the internal and external activities of every one of his citizens. Still, no one will be able to know his system of espionage. It's interesting, espionage, when I looked this up, it had more negative connotations, like spying and all these things. But I think in this term it's more so the kings want to understand where the mindset of their population is. Are they happy with what I'm doing? Are they sad? In this current day and age, espionage is more or less taking advantage of the people, because you spy on them and you take information from them in a means to extort them. But I think in this context, King Prithu he's a very pious king, and the Lord himself, and he's not wanting to extort his people. He's wanting to learn how to please them more. He'll be able to see all internal and external activities. Why is this so? Because Krishna is Paramatma. Krishna is within the heart and he's outside as well. Bahir Nasimha, Hridaye Nasimha. And the Lord within the heart is all, our Paramatma is all the same. The analogy that I find creates a nice visual image is if you have a bunch of clear glass jars with water in them hanging up, and the moon is behind them, and the moon is reflecting through each one of those jars. And it appears that the moon is separate in each one of the jars, but the Paramatma is not separate. It's not splintered, it's not shattered, it's not fragmental. That same Lord is within the heart of everyone. And he's simultaneously, inconceivably fulfilling all the desires of all of us. And as I'll get back to this, but he's also impartially giving out our desires. And so to have the Supreme Lord as the king of this kingdom, there's no doubt that this kingdom will flourish, because the Lord can see within the heart of all of his citizens, and he sees what is distressing them, what is pleasing them, and he shifts accordingly his society. And so without even having to voice what they need, their needs are being met. Isn't that incredible? You know, very pious, very loving and caring, very fatherly. And we contrast this to our current rulers, and it's a huge juxtaposition, because they are activating systems of espionage, so they are spying on the public in some capacity and trying to figure out, get information, but they do it in a way to control us, and not in a good way. Control us from. They just want us to stay numb and docile in our sense gratification. And so they're always thinking and conspiring in different ways to evolve sense gratification. So this is why we're up to the iPhone 16. If material sense gratification was truly satisfying, we would just have the iPhone 1 maybe. Maybe we wouldn't even have iPhones. So, yeah, there's this. It's incredible to see in the Bhagavatam all these exalted kings and these Maharajas, because it shows very clearly what a pious sattvic kingdom can look like, and it very clearly shows you the mire of the current world, the illusion of the current world, that people are so much surrendered to these authorities, but they're putting their hope they're misplacing their hope. The Lord is the only hope, really. Since the king will always remain on the path of piety, he will be neutral to both his son and the son of his enemy. If the son of his enemy is not punishable, he will not punish him. But if his own son is punishable, he will immediately punish him. In fact, to the Lord, everybody is his sons and daughters. So the reason that he is impartial is because, there's no necessarily son, because this is referring to King Prithu and if he'll have direct sons. But we know King Prithu as the Lord himself, and we are all offspring of the Lord. And so he just as the Paramatma is impartial towards all of us, he is the friend to all. And he also is the chastiser of imbalance. Because the Lord is the maintainer of the light and the equilibrium. And so what needs to be done will need to be done. This reminds me, it's in a sense that King Prithu here is being a perfect example as to if Arjuna didn't have this predicament at the start of the Bhagavad Gita, how would have he postured himself? Obviously, the Gita happened mystically as it's meant to be for the benefit of us to know how to come out of illusion, deliver ourselves from illusion. But if Arjuna was fully sober from the beginning, how would have he postured himself? He has this opposing army who has his sons, his brothers, his grandparents, his mentors, his spiritual masters. They're all on the other side. And if he was completely sober, acting in the same mood of King Prithu, he would have done what was the needful, done what is need to be done. And King Prithu has this mood. King Prithu will give out punishment and reward as due. The characteristics of an impartial ruler. This is the characteristics of an impartial ruler. It is the duty of a ruler to punish the criminal and to give protection to the innocent. And so in the battle of Kurukshetra, this is what needed to be done. To protect the innocent, this battle had to commence. But Arjuna was thinking on the bodily platform. He was thinking, I see all my family relations, and I can't kill them. But it's been described by Prabhupada and the Gita that this is extended sense gratification, because you're only showing extra pity to them because you see them as a part of you or your property. But everything is the property of the Lord. We don't own anything. And so, it is the duty of the king to punish the criminal and give protection to the innocent. King Prithu was so neutral that even if his own son were punishable, he would not hesitate but to punish him. On the other hand, if the son of his enemy were innocent, he would not engage in some intrigue in order to punish him. Again, we can contrast this to many government officials in the current world that are harboring guilty ministers and sons that are misbehaving. They put them under the rug, they hide them away and prevent any mistreatment for them to happen. Not only for the sake of their sons, but more so for their own pride and prestige. They will protect, because if their son misbehaves, that reflects badly on them also, and that jeopardizes their position. And so then they lose their power. And of course, everybody in the material world is hungry for status and power, and so they'll do pretty much anything to maintain that. Because if you don't have the knowledge of the soul, what else is there to aspire for? They see the body, they see the sense of ratification in status and power, and they pursue that. I mean, this is the material consciousness, but, this is why we pray every day. Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam vajagirisha kamare mama janmani janmanishvare bhavata bhakti rahaitu ki tvayi. That I do not desire wealth, beautiful women, any number of followers. I don't desire these things. I don't want these things. I just want causeless devotional service. I just want to carry on this way. Okay, so I'll stop speaking here, but I would like to maybe open up the space. Any questions, any correctments, please just feel free to speak now. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Do we still use it here? From what I've seen, I don't think they use friction to start the fire yagis. I could be wrong. Do they? No. Yeah, so I think we just use like a Kindle, a very flammable wood these days. I'm not sure if Irani wood is still around. Um, maybe. Mm. Of Paramatma? Yeah, to see like within. Yeah, and to see everything. Well, absolutely. He was able to see the internal and the external activities of every one of his citizens. So, yeah, he's come to that platform. Absolutely, that, not a blade of grass moves without the sanctioning of the Lord. The Lord knows everything that's happening. Just as we have full consciousness over our body. So if I touch my toe, I go, oh yes, I have consciousness in the toe. I feel it there. But that's where my jurisdiction ends, because I'm jiva. My consciousness disperses throughout this material body, and that's it. The Paramatma is similar, but in a maha, gigantic version. He has full consciousness and sentience of all of the material creations. And so anything's happening anywhere, he's aware of it. In the Ishopanishad, Krishna is described that he can walk faster than anyone. He can be anywhere quicker than anyone, because he is already everywhere. His consciousness is already everywhere, and he's aware of all this is happening. But at the same time, he's aloof. Because does the spirit actually mingle with matter? Is it contaminated by matter? No. It can't be. The spirit, it's described at the start of the Gita, is untouched by flame. It's not moistened, it's not wet, it's not cut, it's not hot, it's not cold. It's none of these things. It can't be affected by matter at all. And so then why are we suffering so much? It's because consciousness goes outwards. And right now we're in this plane of prakriti, external energy. And unfortunately we've found ourselves identifying with this matter. But all this suffering is happening on the bodily and the platform of the mind, but it's never on the soul. So it's this interesting thing. Yeah. Any other questions? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.